Good afternoon, everyone. So much for that rotation rally, right? Looks like we're back chasing the mega cap tech stocks. Nasdaq is leading the charge today, seconded by the S&P, which is underwater, and the Dow, which has been underwater all the day, leading the trio down. But the Nasdaq, just rearing forward. The FANG stocks today, hitting it out of the park. A lot of new highs there. So we'll talk about some of those. But as we come into the close with 15 minutes to go, Dow's down 224 points, about 0.82%. S&P's down a little less than that. And the NASDAQ is up probably closer to, well, it's a little over 0.5% now. Oil had a bit of a wacky day all over the place. But what we're seeing is, for whatever reason, maybe yesterday everybody got a little overly excited about the rally, and was that the end of it? Was that the Monday jitters after a great couple of weeks and great Monday, and all of a sudden today? No, that's risk off. It doesn't make much sense, but nor do the markets sometimes. So we just go with it. Nothing too damaging today, depending on how we end, but I doubt the way we're trading this afternoon, we're going to do anything exciting. In other words, we're not going to dump into the close. At least it doesn't look like that. It doesn't look like we're going to rally into the close either. It looks like just a lot of nothing, as has been most of the day. But there was no real news moving the market down today. There was nothing that came out that I saw that was newsworthy enough to motivate investors to sell, or to motivate investors in terms of the big cap, the mega cap tech stocks to buy. But that's what happened. We're seeing buying in the NASDAQ composite, now again, from the leaders, and we're seeing selling and profit taking in the cyclicals, industrials, energy, some of the airlines, cruise lines getting hit today. I'm looking at Carnival Cruise Lines, it's down 6.5%. American Airlines is down today. I'll take a look at some of the others. American's down 9%. Take a look at UAL, down 7.8%. So this is what you get when you get a rotation that's based on not value, but cheap stocks. Okay, so that means that folks were buying cheap stocks not because they recognized that they were value plays, as in they were underpriced relative to the stream of revenues, profits, and or cash flow, or discounted cash flow models, whatever, any metric you want to use to justify valuation. These stocks that were getting bid up for the last 2 weeks now, going on maybe 3, we're seeing bids, really weren't value plays. They just haven't seen the revenue. We haven't seen the turnaround yet for these companies. It doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It doesn't mean that investors wouldn't be right to get in ahead of a turn, ahead of them being bid up for good reason, i.e. because they're starting to generate revenue. That would be terrific. We'd love to see that, because that means that the economy is getting back to normal. But we don't see that. I think maybe a good ways away from that. But the economy continues to open. The country continues to open. Optimism reigns, I think, for the most part. I very rarely now hear coronavirus spoken of. I'm watching the financial news channels, panning the different channels. Reading all of the stuff comes across my stream, and all the financial press and some reports, et cetera, and there's very little talk about the coronavirus. If there is a talk, it's about the economy opening, it's about the country opening, it's about getting back to normal. So that's a positive if it is indeed the case that we are past the worst of it, and let's hope that is the case. And as we continue to open, we don't see any infection spikes. So far, so good. Not true elsewhere around the globe, but we're looking at the US, and we're looking at pretty good prospects. So that means that some of these companies that look like they're cheap, our value may be worth a bid. But today, as was the exact opposite of yesterday, instead of getting bid up, they are getting tossed out. So that happens in a New York second. Big day today for the NASDAQ composite. And I think that just bodes well in general for the market, as long as there is some strong leadership. And That leadership has been the big cap, mega cap tech stocks, and that's fine for now because there wasn't really enough strength in the other sectors when they started to pick up, especially the financials. And then when you see the airlines pick up and you see the cruise lines pick up and you see a bunch of industrial stocks pick up and you see a lot of beaten down energy companies bid up, then that's a little suspect. Probably the big news today was, I think it was Chesapeake declared bankruptcy, and we'll take a look at the stock. But it just goes to show you that it's pretty hard to pick a winner and is in the energy patch and be 100% comfortable that you're buying something that looks cheap and you're in line for some kind of profit. In fact, it can turn on a dime. So this is, in fact, exactly what's happened in some of the energy plays. And a lot of folks, I think, have gotten beaten up, as has happened for in the airlines and has happened in the cruise lines and some of the other sectors that are beaten up. We talked a little bit yesterday about some gaps that we're seeing, and we're seeing those in the financials. So we'll keep a tight eye on the financials to see if they come back and fill those small gaps that they just created over the last 2 days. We'll take a look at those today and see if there's any backfilling. I don't think there's enough backfilling today. I know the financials are off today. The XLF is off, the Spider Financial. We'll take a look at some of those, and we'll look at them graphically together and see what we can see. But right now, as we're heading into the close with a little more than 8 minutes to go, Dow's down 300. It's ticking down a little bit into the close. Not on our lows of the days, or quite near the lows of the days. NASDAQ Composite's coming back down from its was up at one point about 0.75%, maybe a little higher. Actually, I think it's sort of up about probably 0.9% at one point. That's backing down to about 0.33%. S&P ticking down a little bit going into the close with about 7.5 minutes to go. So nothing dramatic, but again, this is the market. This is the world we live in now. This is how markets react. Pretty thin volume today so far, it seems to me. Yesterday's volume was pretty decent. And in fact, it was pretty good, I would have to say. And on top of Friday's volume, again, what we're seeing on the up days is pretty strong volume. And on the down days, the volume diminishes remarkably, maybe 10, 15% at times. So that's a positive in the long run, as long as it's not 100% retail investors just bottom fishing and trying to boost up whatever stocks they have so they can see profitability. But that is, generally speaking, a good sign when you see strong volume on up days. And that's what we've seen now for several weeks, which has encouraged me over the past several weeks to become bullish. That was one of the metrics that I witnessed that gave me confidence that the buying there was strong conviction in the buying. When you see that kind of increase in volume on big up days, and then it diminishes on any subsequent down days, that's a positive. So, we'll hope that can continue to the bullish side, and there's no reason it can't. The market still has momentum. Today may be an anomaly. We don't know. We'll take a look at everything after the close and see what the investors say, and we'll see overnight, obviously, what the futures do. But really nothing major that I saw. If you guys saw anything that you think knocked the markets down, let me know. We'll talk about it. But really, other than Chesapeake, I'm not sure I saw anything that certainly scared me. And I'm going to take a look and see if there's anything that pops up. And right now, there's nothing on the journal, nothing in Barron's, there's nothing in Financial Times. There's nothing on any of the news feeds that I have that is indicative of anything to worry about. So far, that's it. Got a couple questions here, and market is trying to sell off a little bit into the close, but it's got a mixed bag with 5 minutes to go. Tom is asking, what are some ETFs you recommend for hedges? Let's talk. We're going to talk a little bit tomorrow, Tommy, about some hedges, some downside plays. We're going to talk a little bit about bankruptcies tomorrow, and then Thursday and Friday, I'm actually going to come up with some names that I'm not saying are headed towards bankruptcy, but that may be in some trouble and may be worthwhile looking at for a downside play. But as far as hedges, we'll talk a bit about those tomorrow. But there's only a few that I like in terms of the general market, and there's certain ways I like to play some of these ETFs. But generally, if you're looking for a hedge against the market and you have your beta, in other words, how your portfolio tracks the market or whether it tracks the QQQs or SPY or IWM, that's relevant to, I think, which ETFs you should choose to create a hedge with. So we'll talk a little bit more about that tomorrow. Tommy's also asking, what about those that bought up Chesapeake the day before filing bankruptcy? I think they're in big trouble. They're sitting on losses, and obviously, I'm just trying to be a little sarcastic. But yeah, again, there are probably a lot of people that in the last few days were bidding up these companies. The company doesn't ward off buyers of its stock because it's contemplating bankruptcy filing. That just doesn't happen. Can't happen. So investors who think, okay, the air is clear, and Saudi Arabia is talking about another month of production cuts. Okay, I think oil can go a little higher. Let me go take a swipe at something like a Chesapeake or any of the energy companies, is taking a risk. And we know that. This is the game we're in. This is the game we play, especially in a market like this, given what the economy has done, given where the economy is likely to go over the next quarter and or longer. So yeah, I think they are out of luck, and that's being polite. So too bad for those folks. But that's, again, we've talked about that here regularly. It's great to make those kind of plays, but take your profits. If you've got a nice profit, look at it as a day trade. If you're not sure about how something's going to go and you have a really nice profit in it, if you're unsure, take your profit. If you want to let your profits run, which is always advisable, then go ahead and do that. Just know that you're taking the risk of the morning opening and your losses instantaneous because something happened overnight or first thing in the morning or during the day before you have time to check your position even. So that's the risk we take. A couple more questions here. Peter's asking, with Mac dumping Intel chips, good time to go short on Intel? I don't know. I like Intel, so I'm not. Let me take a look at it. I'm just not. Intel's always been one of those stocks that you can catch now and then and make some money on the short side. But generally speaking, I play Intel from the long side, looking for some pops, usually around earnings. But it's hard to fade that one. It's had a very nice bounce, and if you look at the chart, you'll see obviously that Peter, it was going up prior to, I mean, it was made in an all-time high. I'm not sure if it's an all-time high, but certainly a 52-week high in February, and it came down with the rest of the market, and then it's been really working its way up very nicely. I'm not sure that I would short this right now. I'd want to see the market crack a little bit first if I wanted to take a shot at Intel on the downside. Rohan James is asking, thanks for your great advice. My pleasure. Given it's an election year, is GTN a good play? I don't know. Let's take a look at GTN. But certainly appreciate and thank you for your ideas. GTN, Gray Television. That's a good one. I don't know Gray Television. That's not Brad Gray, because I know he passed. He was Wilstein Gray Entertainment. So I don't know Gray Television. I'm going to have to take a look at that because now I'm curious. So I'm just looking at the chart, and I see it looks pretty good on the chart. It had a little bit of a gap a couple of days ago. It's coming back down to maybe fill that gap, but that's a pretty strong move, and it looked like it was moving up prior to that. So let me take a look at GTN overnight, and Rohan, I'll get back to you on that tomorrow, because anything in TV I'm interested in. I have some friends in that business, and if I don't know anything, I'll call them up and they know everything, and they're not analysts. They're in the entertainment business, and they are pretty well connected. So I'll take a look at that. But I'm curious about what great television is. PE is 8.25. It's an interesting looking stock chart. So I look forward to getting back to you on that. John B, will rotation into depressed value happen again? Probably, yes, because that unless the market is turning around, and we certainly can't make any kind of judgment based on one day where it trades off a little bit. If it's turning around, then no, then those stocks that were rotated into the value stocks, the cheap stocks, the bottom fishing stocks, they'll get tossed out very quickly because a lot of retail folks went into that, and some of them are sitting on some profits, or if not, they're maybe sometimes going in on a daily basis, speculating on them, maybe getting out at the end of the day. But there are a lot of short-term traders that are playing those for quick gains, because you're seeing sometimes 10, 15, 25 plus % gains in a day. You can get a string of those, and heaven knows you're hitting it out of the park if you do that, especially if you buy some options that are way out of the money and they come into the money within 2 days. You're going to be a happy camper. But no, I don't see that rotation being over, because we'll look at the FANGs today. They're rich. They're rich in terms of price, in terms of valuation. So yes, there's going to be plenty of eyeballs looking at all of the beaten up sectors, and we know there's plenty of those. So I don't think that rotation is nearly done, barring, as I said, the market turning around, whether it's turned slowly, stalls out, and then starts to drift a little bit lower. Then I think some of those stocks, those rotation type stocks, those value type cheap stocks, may get less. People will be less interested in taking positions in them. They may day trade them to see if they can catch a pop, which we see a lot of retail investors getting in the morning. A lot of the volume you see in the morning is retail, and people trying to get a ride for the day and maybe close a position by the end of the day with a nice little gain, maybe doing some just short-term trading, swing trading, any kind of trading over the day. And the market's been volatile enough, it can be very lucrative if you cut your losses and let your wins run. Then you could have had a heck of a nice few months. And I think that the trading opportunity is going to remain, I believe, for some time to come, certainly through the election. I think it's going to get more exciting and more volatile. Volatility for me is exciting because there's opportunities there, both to the upside and downside. Dari from Ocala. Love Ocala. It's beautiful over there. Shall we, you still good on NTAP? And yes, let's take a look at those. I'm still good. Yeah, barring, yes. A little bit, the move up on NetApp has been really nice. We're looking at NetApp, everybody symbol NTAP. It's something in one of our services that we recommended, and it's had a nice little move up, not a dramatic move up, but I like the steadiness of its rise from being hit, and it's got that huge gap to fill from way back, which frankly, it's filled, but it can come back and do that again. Stocks can do that because that creates some kind of opportunity, and we're getting to that level where above 50, we could see it take a little bit, take a run higher. There's a little bit of a downturn today. Again, with the market turning down, isn't much. It could be just profit taking. I'm not overly concerned about that. And as far as RVLV, I believe the same thing. We're not going to have a straight run up. So we're down 10%, 10.5% today in that, but we're not in any place yet where I'm worried at all. So we had the nice little move up that we were looking for, and so today we get a little 10% down move. Stock price was raised by I think Instinet. I think it was raised, the analyst Instinet raised the target to 14, which obviously is under the market, but they do that sometimes because they're so far off. And here we are at 16.69 today. Again, off almost $2 today, but I'm not worried. I see the stock striving to get back to 20, and I think as long as we don't. If we don't go down if we stay above 14, I have no problem with the stock doing exactly what it's doing. It's just going to move around a little bit like that. Peter's asking, TSM, We'll get government aid to build in Arizona. That's a good question. A lot of government aid out there already, and I think there is more to come. So TSM, you're talking about Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing. I didn't know. Are they looking for government aid for tax breaks to build in Arizona? I didn't know that. If that's the case, it remains to be seen. A lot of states, a lot of cities are having a hard time giving tax relief now to companies to relocate. There was a strong trend of that years ago, and that's become cities and states have become less inclined because they don't want to be seen, especially the politicians don't want to be seen as giving up tax revenue, especially to someone like a Taiwan Semiconductor. So I don't know, I haven't seen that news. I'd be hard pressed to think that they would get too many breaks. I doubt they'd get any kind of aid, but if anything, maybe some kind of tax break to set up a plant there. But I don't know, so I'll have to take a look at that. Take a look at that overnight too. As far as the effect on other semiconductor makers, if they are getting aid in some way, shape, or form, then they won't be the only ones. That's my feeling there. If that is the case, I just can't imagine that they would be the only ones getting aid. So if there's some being offered, believe me, everyone's going to come with their hat in hand. Somebody I just saw flash away semiconductors. Semis have been holding up, so I think they're fine the way they are. Chris is asking about NKLA. As far as the semis, as long as we're seeing some economic growth and not an absolute catastrophe, and the market turning around because the economy is not recovering and is going the wrong way, which it doesn't appear to be going the wrong way. We know it's in the dumpster, and everyone's looking at after the dumpster, the climb out of the dumpster, and that's what obviously the market is anticipating. So as long as that's still the present narrative that things are going to get better, then semis should be just fine. In fact, I like the semis if the market continues strong and the economy looks like it's going to continue to climb out of the hole, which is going to take a little time, but if it's on that path, then semis will be just fine. But that being said, every area is subject to volatile swings, simply because there's a lot of betting going on. There's a lot of speculation going on about certain things are going to happen. And if they don't, people are going to take their profits quickly because everyone, well, not everyone, of course, a lot of investors are very nervous about being in this market still. Nikola Corporation, NKLA, nice 13.46% move today. This thing is just, I don't follow, but it's got huge volume today. The stock has skyrocketed in the last couple of sessions. It was going up before that, coming off the ground. It's kind of doing a whole lot of nothing at 10, like it was just dead. And then all of a sudden, bam, this thing takes off. I'm going to have to take a look at that because I don't know what Nikola does. If that's any relation to Tesla, we'll find out. And I think the naming convention may be similar to Nikolai Tesla, but I don't know. I'm just guessing there. So we'll take a look at that because I apologize. I don't know what they do, but that kind of move is from 9 to 93 high. Now it's back down at 83 is pretty staggering. So they better be doing something interesting, and I'll find out and we'll talk about it tomorrow. But on stocks like that, as I tell you all pretty much, I believe regularly, if you get a ride in a stock like that, great, take profits. So what if you get out at 50? If the stock was at 10 and you get out at 50, if you buy it at 50 and it goes to 80. So what if you don't get out at 93? So what if it goes to 100? If you make that kind of money in a couple of days, in a couple of weeks, don't be greedy. Take your profit, because in a market like this, bam, that thing can turn around so fast. And again, I don't know what Nikola does, but we'll take a look at it. I would just be I'd be looking to see where I can take my profits if you haven't already. But if you own it, congratulations, you've had a beautiful ride. So hopefully that helps you, Chris. But I will look up because I'm curious about that. Simply for the name and certainly the way the stock has moved. Hello, Pablo. How are you? What do I think about MITT and RWT? AG Mortgage Investment Trust. A lot of volume today, lot of volume, and you can see this thing just fell off of the shelf and struggled really to do anything. And off 24% today. You can just tell by the last couple of days that investors trying to position themselves one way or the other for some big move. I'm not sure how the mortgage market is doing. I'm not sure with forbearance and a lot of stuff that's going on. I don't know how the mortgage market is going to hold up. Whether or not when we come to the end of the stimulus checks, come to the end of the extra $600 a week, we have a while to go before we come to the end of forbearance, because the federal government, as far as government-backed mortgages from Freddie and Fannie and Ginnie, you have the year, you have 6 months, but then I think the 6-month extension after that is automatic. I think you just have to ask for it. It's going to be hard to tell what's going to happen to the mortgage market as far as what's going to happen with forbearance, and then again the market in general, and then interest rates. So I don't know. That's a tough one. But the action lately, the last couple of days of that pop, that looks like just a short covering rally for sure. And we talked yesterday about interest rates being all over the place. The 10 years back down now to I think 0.82, but it was up at 0.93 the other day from 0.65 a week ago. Just crazy stuff. So when you see interest rates move like that, then you have all kinds of problems in the mortgage market, because these guys finance their book, and they're heavily leveraged. That's how they make their money. There's a lot of leverage. So if rates start to go up, then they're going to have a problem refinancing their book, depending on how short they borrowed. So I don't know about that. RWT, hopefully that helps you, Pablo. RWT is Redwood Trust. Is Redwood a mortgage trust? I don't know. I'll take a look at Redwood too. But that's had a similar move. So I'm looking at the stock chart, and it looks to me it's like it's trading similarly to the other mortgage securities trusts, and certainly the action looks like that, with a yield of 17.4%. Just think about, in order to get that kind of yield, Pablo, how much leverage are they using in a trust like that? That's insane. So I'm always cautious when I see that kind of yield. It's just that's a red flag for me. Oh, Ira's asking, is Boeing a buy, sell, or a hold? Another great question. Yeah, I think it was a buy, obviously, at 100. It was a buy really at 120. It was actually a buy at 150. Up here at 216, I'm not so sure. They don't have any new orders. The plants aren't fully operational. They're not. They've had a lot of cancellations, and into the cancellations, what they've got is a back order that has been diminished because of cancellations, and the front book of cancellations means that there are more planes out there that people did take lately from Airbus, from Boeing over the last year, 2 years, that they have gone to leasing companies that they're going to lease out. And believe me, the demand isn't there. So right now, I don't see Boeing. I don't know that it's got the wings to go much higher. I think I'm surprised that it got up here. But then again, this was one of the stocks that, yes, it's not going anywhere. It would be hard pressed to see Boeing going out of business, because that company would absolutely 100% be salvaged in any way, shape, or form, whatever it needed, the government would not let Boeing go bankrupt, period. So no problem with that. They're too big to fail for sure, too important to fail. And investors know that. And so they bid up Boeing because if the economy is turning, then yeah, Boeing's going to be one of those value stocks. And at the price it went down at 100, 120, it was a value stock in the correct sense of value. I just think it's a little overdone here. I think the stock can easily come back down. Easily back down to 175, maybe even 150 until this passes and we start to see planes in the air again on a regular type basis and full. Even then, these I don't know. They're going to have to be awfully full a lot of the time in order to start to ratchet up ordering again from Boeing. So I think it's overdone. If you have it, I would maybe consider taking some profits or maybe buying some puts and protecting what you have if you do have some profits in it. Long term, I do like Boeing. If you're happy holding it and you're a long term holder, then I wouldn't do anything. If you own it, especially if you own it lower, frankly, I'd put it away and then go look at it in 5 years. And I think it'll be easily back at 350 by then. So I wouldn't worry about it. This stock is going to make a new high within, I'd say, 5 years. It probably could go considerably above that, but it's going to make up all its ground within, I'd say, 2 to 3 years for the absolute most. But I think if the economy picks up, global economy picks up, and we don't go into some kind of global quasi-depression, which is still a possibility, is still out there. The worst it's not over. The worst seems to be past for now, but there are repercussions to be had from the whole world practically shutting down. It's insane when you think about what just happened and what is happening. So no, if you don't own Boeing, I would wait. I wouldn't buy it here. Me personally, down 6% today. Comes back down to 150, I'd grab it with the intent of buying more if it goes lower. That'd be my call on Boeing. But that being said, I don't want you to miss it. It's because eventually it's going up. I'm just trying to get a better price. Anson is asking, do you favor trading the cycles over trend strategy during this fall? I like both. Because there's time to trade cyclical stocks. There's a time to trade cycles. You can trade cycles within the trend. I mean, some sectors are trading cyclically. Some stocks trade cyclically. You can trade cycles in terms of time. You can trade cycles in terms of just market volatility moving up and down. So there's all kinds of cycles you can trade within a trend. I generally like to trade with the trend. I do try and catch bottoms and catch tops. I do that, not that often. I have to be really comfortable that what I see is I'm confident is going to happen. And it looks like it starts to happen. Then I might try and catch a bottom or a top in a big way. But I prefer in a market like this to try and play the trend, which has been up. And then within that, I'll look for some cycles. Again, as we've been talking about for the last couple of days, yes, you pick up some cyclicals. It's a good time to do it because the trend is up and you're buying these cyclicals that are out of favor that might cycle back into favor because of the cycles in the economy. So I do both and hope that helps you. Luke is asking, do you think Penn bounces back to 35 this week? Let's take a look and see. Penn National Gaming. Again, this is the gaming stocks have just taken off, but we know that the worst isn't over for the go-to gamers, but the remote gamers, I think they've got a lot. They got a lot more to go. Penn is the action is a little disconcerting the way it really got up there, made a new high, and then just collapsed. So I'd be a little cautious in there. I don't follow it, but I'm not sure why it just tanked like that. I know I'm looking and I see it had a downgrade um, from to sell from a hold at Deutsche Bank. That was yesterday, so that was enough to knock it down. It looks like the Deutsche Bank downgrade knocked it down. So I'd be cautious about that. It had a heck of a rise, so maybe profit taking, especially on downgrade. If there are other downgrades, I'd be looking to protect my profits if you have some in there. Do I think it's going to go back up to 35 this week? Oh gosh, that's a tough one. I would say, at 30, if you want to take a shot, I would maybe, if it comes down to 30, I maybe take a shot and buy it at 30, but I have a very tight stop on it and see if it can't bounce, because there's some support at 30, and if it doesn't hold 30, then I think it's in trouble. Can it bounce back to 35 easily? But this is now in volatile territory, in a bit of a no man's land right here. So I'd be very careful either way on that. Pablo's asked, thanks. Oh, you're welcome, Pablo, of course. I used to trade foreign. Yeah, I did foreign exchange. I traded forwards at for Lloyd's Bank, and I hedged for the both the forwards desk and the currency desks at Lloyd's, one of Britain's largest banks. So used to don't do the currencies anymore. That's a fun game. That's a crazy game. Peter's asking, mentioned looking up pot stock yesterday. No, Peter, I didn't. I know Sufi asked also cannabis stocks, and also she wants to know. So I have some 5G names. I got to do a little further dig. I did cull a list from the universe of 5Gs that I like. I just got to dig into them. It's a pretty strong list, and there's a lot of interesting names there. But I really got to dig in deeper because there are some very interesting names. I'm just want to try and narrow down to just at least a few that I think are the probably the best candidates. So I'm still working on that. I apologize. And also, did you get a chance? No, not yet. You have CURLF, Curlf. You're up 43%. Wow. So let's take a look at that. See what. Congratulations. That's a nice trade. CURLF. Curaleaf Holdings. Okay, you're up nicely there. Stocks kind of all over the place. This is typical of some of these pot stocks. You can just, what a crazy ride, bumpy ride it's had, but it's also been working its way down. Now it looks like it's trying to work its way up. Again, congratulations if you're up big on that, and good for you. You need to see this thing get above 6. Like to see it get above. Ideally like to see it get to 7, and then I'd be comfortable if it gets to 7. Certainly like to see it get there. Right now, it's looks a little iffy. Just make sure you don't give up too much if it starts to head back down. And SHWZ, you're up 40%. Good for you. You got to tell us about these stocks. SHWZ is Medicine Man Technologies. Again, same thing I would say here. Peter, if you're looking at, obviously you are looking at the stock. Everybody else, this is symbol SHWZ, Medicine Man Technologies, Inc. Closed today up 0.73 at $2.06. It's just been, sort of like your other stock, it's been choppy on the way down and going down. Hit a bottom and trying to bounce. This is typical of the pot stocks. These cannabis stocks. If this is a cannabis stock, and I presume it is, this is one of the reasons I don't really pay much attention to them, because they've mostly been in a downtrend, and if they're not, they're so volatile. And I just don't know enough about them, and by that I mean the industry and what's going on with the industry in order to be comfortable. And from what I've heard from the folks who do know about it, or at least profess to know, is that there's a lot to know and they don't know. So that means I'm just going to back off because I know I don't know. So again, If you know more than I do, great. Just know I do know that if you got a nice profit, make sure you don't let slip away. Michael, please comment on how this COVID market behaves on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays if you see a trend. Uh, I haven't seen a trend. Let me know, Michael, what you think you see. I'm looking forward to hear that. I haven't noticed any discernible trend. I mean, I'll go back and look over all the stuff the metrics that I keep and see if I can see anything. And there may be a pattern there. I just maybe haven't seen it. Maybe I've been too deep in the woods to stand out and see the forest. But I'm going to take a look at that. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you say. Okay. And that certainly is possible because it could have something to do with retail. Retail is maybe moving in a particular way, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, maybe getting in Mondays, rebalancing, adjusting on Wednesdays, and maybe getting out on Fridays or looking for a play to get in on Friday to last over the weekend. So could be that, or it could be institutional, or it could be just, I don't know, Martians. But I'm going to take a look and see if there's something I can see. But thanks for bringing that up. Comment on bankruptcies. We're going to talk a little about that the rest of the week, Michael. Because of Chesapeake, I want to take a look at their filing and see what happened and what they're claiming. And I want to take a look and see what kind of assets they have against their liabilities and what prompted them to file, because there's money available. So they must be in pretty bad shape. But sometimes you don't know. There are other mechanical reasons. It might be credit default swaps pushing them there. There's all kinds of stuff. The game gets very tricky when you go into default, or you're pushed into default, or you decide to declare default. There's a lot of things that go on. So let me see if I can figure that out. But because bankruptcy plays are tricky. It's really, they're about timing. And again, in a market that's going up, I'm hard pressed to throw out some bankruptcy ideas or potential bankruptcy ideas or downgrades that might lead to default eventually, that might lead to insolvency or bankruptcy. But again, in a rising market, hard pressed, especially with the Fed. Again, another thing I want to look at in terms of Chesapeake is what is going on. If the Fed is buying corporate debt, why weren't they able to go out to market? So now I'm curious about that, and especially in the energy sector, especially Chesapeake, big company. Don, thank you. Big thanks to Shah. Made 10 grand on Jets last Friday. Congratulations. That's absolutely fantastic. Let me take a look at Jets. Again, we talked about Jets quite a bit, and we also talked about taking profits. It's great when this stuff goes up. Can Jets go higher? Yes, but it can turn right back around. Look at American Airlines today. I told you guys we bought some puts the other day on American Airlines. We had a limit price, and we didn't get filled on the day we put the order out, but we got filled the next day, which was at a better price because American Airlines went higher. So we got filled there, and we took a profit on that today. Not as nice as I thought we would have. I thought we would have made 100% on that, but I think we made maybe 50% off. To take a look. I didn't look at the books yet. Jets, again, like a lot of the airlines today, and because of Boeing's hit today, and Boeing is not in Jets, by the way. Airbus is, but Boeing is not. But that's a reflection of the marketplace for aircraft and for the airlines, et cetera. And, right now, 20, if I own Jets, I would say it traded as low as 1977 today. Below 20 and test of that 1977. If I had a profit, I'd probably look to take my profit and reposition. I think if it comes down, this is the kind of stock, the ETF, that you can play between 15 and 20. And I'd be comfortable getting back in at 15, 14, 13 and trying to catch a ride up to 20 again, take my profits. You can play this. This is almost like a mean reversion play. It might continue to be that way for the rest of the summer. So, but just right now, if you have a nice profit in it, I wouldn't leave too much on the table, because if airlines are backing up today, and they continue to back up tomorrow, then Jets is obviously going to take a little bit of hit because a lot of retail is in there. A lot of people are looking at taking profit. So congratulations, by the way. That's a great trade. 10 grand is always that's a beautiful thing. So my pleasure. Storm and Norman, what do I think about Ring? I think I wish I'd come up with the idea. The iShares Global Gold Miners. The thing about the gold miners is they've had such a nice, because gold has had such a nice run, and there's been a lot of consolidation. Not a lot, but there's been some consolidation in the miners, and this has had a heck of a run. It looks like Storm and Norman. It looks like it's rolling over a little bit. Again, we talked about gold and with GLD and TLT the other day. When the market is going up, and typically Friday, Monday, the huge gains from last week, and then follow through yesterday, we're looking at gold. All of a sudden, the luster's off a little bit. People are like, well, wait a second, maybe I don't need a safe haven, and maybe I don't need bonds, and okay, maybe I need to take my profits. So we're seeing them come down. I think that your fund is more reactive than gold itself. So you're a little more volatile in Ring than say GLD, and I'm using GLD as a benchmark. And GLD is going a little sideways in here. Is trying to probably, if it stays in the sideways range and consolidates, it could go either way. But if we get some negative news on the economy, we get some negative news elsewhere, and that could be a lot of different things. And I think gold still has more upside to go. However, we always talk about taking profits. But as far as your Ring, it has rolled over, in my opinion. I think you got some support here at 26 thereabouts, maybe 25 range. You got some support. I think this thing below 26, I would get nervous. So that's my thought on Ring. Hope that helps you out there. Also, Storm and Norman wants to know about Sorrento Therapeutics, SRNE. One of these crazy stocks all over the place, motivated by news, and it's. I try to take a perspective on a stock like this, especially a company like this that I don't know, that I look at for the first time, and I'm looking graphically and trying to get the feel of the stock without knowing exactly what side or what part of the therapeutics business they're really deep into, and what they really do, what their prospects are, whether they have what in trials and how far along, et cetera. So without knowing any of that, I'm looking at the chart and I'm saying it's done a whole lot of nothing, gone sideways for a year, pretty sloppy, tremendous volume. All of a sudden it starts to pick up. You have that huge gap, and just like an absolute rocket takes off from just below 3 to 10, and then it comes right back down to 477. I'd be careful about this one. Again, I apologize, don't know exactly what therapeutics, what they're doing, and how far along they're doing, or they are with whatever they've got in trials or what have you. But that kind of spike, unless it's followed by something a little more concrete, in other words, the stock stays elevated, which means obviously something went very well for the company. If it comes back down like this, that to me is a little worrisome. So I don't know if that helps you, but I'm just looking at the chart and that's what I see. It's a little bit dicey. A huge volume lately, 48 million shares today. So a lot of volume. I don't know what the average volume is, but I'm sure back in the previous year it wasn't anything like that. So just be careful on that one. No, Tommy, I didn't give a chance to look at strategy on gaps, but I'm going to get to that because that's a terrific idea. So yeah, I'm definitely going to look into that. It might take a little while to get to that. I got a couple of things on my plate, but that's certainly one of the things I look forward to taking a look at. It's just something I've always played gaps. I've always traded them successfully, and I just never thought about actually looking at just trading gaps as a strategy and go looking for them. But that's a great idea, and we're going to look into that together. Pablo is asking, do I have any know of any good IPOs coming? No, I don't. I don't, and I don't often. I very, very rarely trade IPOs. In fact, the last IPO that I liked, believe it or not, was Peloton. That was a big IPO that was coming. That it was people were very negative on it. I thought that I liked the model. In fact, I was on Varney and Company, and Stuart Varney asked me about Peloton, and everybody was knocking it, thought it was silly. I think I was the only person 2 days and the day before the IPO that said I liked it. I think this was one of the few that was coming out back then that I did like. And nobody knew what was going to happen in terms of staying at home. But I like subscription models, and I like their model. I like their equipment. It's expensive, but high end equipment sells, and so I like it. But other than that, I'm not too up on IPOs. I know we had one out today that was up 100%. I forget what it was. I think it was that car company. I forget the name. I glanced at that, but I'm not on top of that, so I apologize. If you guys have any, I always look at them. If somebody asks me, or if someone's going to go into it, or someone's offering me shares, of course I'll look at some of these IPOs, and I have a pretty good eye for them. So if you guys see anything that you're interested in, I'll be happy to look at it with you. Again, I have a kind of neat insight into that, and I have some friends in that business who are very knowledgeable on IPOs and investment banking in general. And so when I have questions that I'm not able to answer myself, I'll give them a ring and ask them for their opinion, and they have never been wrong, never steered me wrong. So we'll see if that can be of any use to you guys. Vroom. Thank you, Pablo. I just caught that when I was glancing up at the television, and I saw that it looked like it came out and went up 100%, and good for them. I'd be a little upset that he left that much money on the table. I'd be talking to my investment banker about that, but still a lot of retained stock in the treasury, and the owners have a lot of stock, still have a great day nonetheless. So I'd like to raise more money for the company, but it touches the market. I'm glad that it was well accepted, and congratulations to those guys. Luke is asking, do you think airlines have any more juice for the rest of the week? I don't know. It's really about this rotation, Luke. I think that's what happened today. I think that the retail buyers, I think got a little tired today, and they saw the futures. They weren't sure what to make of that. And it's not to be unexpected on a tremendous run up that we get a little bit of a pullback. And that's all it really appears to be right now. But the talk of the day, it seemed on every channel and everything I panned to, and some of the stuff I read, a lot of the talk was about this rotation that started like about 3 weeks ago, where the rest of the market was on pause while people were bidding up the beaten up stocks, and that became the narrative was, here's this rotation going on now, and that today, for some reason, just out of the blue, literally, it was all last week and yesterday was talk of the rotation. The one comment I did see yesterday was someone called it dash for trash, which I found humorous and perhaps a bit apropos. And it may just be that there was a lot of lot of negativity and a lot of commentary out there about some of these plays and whether or not they were really worthwhile. And again, if it's retail investors, they're very easily shaken out, especially if you're sitting on a quick profit, you want to take it, or you're on the flat line and you're looking at a potential loss, you might want to just get out quickly. And that's a lot of times what we're seeing in these stocks. Again, I said earlier, I think we got more to go as far as the airlines. That's in that wheelhouse. That's exactly what's happening with the airlines. I would have to say it's about the market. If the market firms up tomorrow, then I think the airlines will be okay. I don't know that they're going to bounce. And the market's going to have to pick up where it left off last week and Monday. It's going to have to continue to go higher robustly on good volume to get the airlines, which have spiked up there, to continue now that they've rolled over for the last couple of days, for them to get back up, to get the momentum to turn back around. Because that scared a lot of folks who got in and maybe looked at some quick losses. There's going to be a lot of trepidation about jumping back in. If the market is going higher, they'll jump back in. If not, then I think the airline run may be done. I'm going to take, and you had a couple of stocks you want me to take a look at. So if you don't mind, run those back. I think that got taken off the board. So you can shoot back the stocks you want me to take a look at, and those airline stocks we'll take a look at them now, because I know a lot of folks are in them. Even JetBlue hit hard today, and the pattern is the same for all of them today, all the airlines, and you can see it in jets. Really, if you wanted to have a quick glance at a representative underlying benchmark, you can look at jets, and that you see that's the pattern. UAL didn't get UAL held up a little bit better, but the pattern's the same. JetBlue got hit hard. Pattern again. This, to me, they look a little soft in here for sure. I'd be cautious, especially if you're sitting on a nice profit. I would almost say, think about taking some money off the table. Yeah. It's going to be about the market, and it's going to be about the strength of the market, and whether or not there's conviction for folks to get back in. I know we didn't go over the market today, the different benchmarks at the close. We'll skip that today. You guys, you had a pretty good idea what's going on. No important support levels were even approached today, so there's nothing really to really talk about there. Tomorrow we'll obviously catch up on all that. I got a couple more questions here. I want to see if I can get these out real quick. John's asking, what do you think about ITA? That's the iShares Aerospace and Defense. It's turned over too, and it had that gap up there a couple of days ago, which is nice to see, because that's indicative of some strong interest. But at the same time, the market has been gapping up a lot, and it's been filling those gaps too. So I'd be a little cautious on this one. If you bought prior to that gap up, if you bought anywhere like a 165 or up, I think just don't let your profits get away from you. I could see this coming back down to 180, and if it comes down to 180, then it's anybody's guess from there. But right now, I'd be nervous if I was holding this. I'd be nervous that we're going to come back down and fill that little gap. So something like this, for me, I'll probably look to take some profits and then get back in. If it comes down lower and I still like it, still like the market, I get back in. But this is also, again, one of those cyclical plays that we've been talking about. Peter, looking, Ready Capital Corporation has 16% dividend, coming back down to a buy point. Let's take a look. RC. I'm going to have to take a look at RC, get a deeper look at it for you, Peter, because I'm not sure exactly. But anytime I see a yield like 18% yield, I got to figure they're obviously leveraging themselves to get that kind of yield. And depending on what they're leveraging, I'd be cautious. So I can't answer that. It's down big today, and it was up big last couple of weeks, but I'd be cautious. I'll get back to you on that tomorrow. So remind me tomorrow, Peter. I'll take a look at it overnight for you. I don't know what it is, and I apologize. Mike, anything on the calendar that could affect the market? Nothing that I see, Mike. Nothing on the front burner. All the usual stuff is there. And it's like a 6 burner stove. Everything is lit and everything's just on, not on the lowest level. That's it. There's not even, you can barely see the flames, but there's stuff on the stove. That's for sure. And a lot of things can come up and bite the market. At the same time, market has been looking at all of those things lit and has just run right over them and right on up to new highs, as in the case of the NASDAQ composite. So that in and of itself is a pot on the stove. The fact that we're seeing such disparity between the big cap, the mega cap tech stocks again soaring to new highs, and the rest of the market faltering on a day like today. So you start to see that separation again. That makes me nervous. It's nice to see the big cap leadership, but at the same time, the farther the rest of the market gets away from that, then we know that things are getting pricey. And the big caps, the mega caps in the NASDAQ composite are probably now, I got to do some math, they're probably on average now, the top 10 are probably 31, 2 times earnings. And that, that's rich. So they're getting richer regularly. That usually doesn't end well. So it doesn't mean that it has to end, but it often does not end well. But anyway, so far so good. The trend is your friend. Until we see this market turn around, then we continue to go with it. Plain simple. Okay, thanks, Luke. Love and American. Okay, let's go. As far as the Southwest goes, everyone, we're looking at Southwest, symbol LUV. As far as love goes, it's same picture as the others. The great move up, cyclical charge that go after the undervalued companies, and bang. Now, again, it's really a question of the market, in my opinion. If the market, it's got to firm up very quickly for the airlines that have had that big pop to not start slipping back down. The market firms up next couple of days and firms up nicely. They should hold, close to where they are now. And if they can, and if they can consolidate, then they have another leg to go higher. If they can't, they can come right back down. So be careful there. Same thing with American. Exact same picture. Americans had even a steeper rise, and that's why we bought puts the other day, simply because that rise was, that parabolic kind of move is like, please, come on. I just don't. I don't see it. I don't see the justification for expectations of earnings all of a sudden being anything that could drive the stock that much higher that quickly. So, same story. Okay, all right, got it. Rohan is asking, what are your thoughts on companies that are 90% owned by insiders and institutions, such as AJRD? I don't know what AJRD is. Let's take a look. Aerojet Rocketdyne Holdings. I'm going to take a look at it, and we'll talk about that one tomorrow, because I have no idea what the holding. If someone, anytime institution or an investor, group of investors owns 90%, it doesn't give the stock a lot of room to move, and that's okay, because they don't necessarily want it to move unless it's going up, which is not the case for this stock. Looks pretty sloppy trading. Came back down in February like everybody else did, and has tried to muster some strength to get back up above 45. It looks decent. It looks like it's okay. It's got to stay there, and if it does, maybe you can get above 50 and work its way a little bit higher. But this to me looks like a tough one for a long-term hold, for example. This is one of those stocks I'll take a look at it overnight and see exactly what they do. But this looks to me like one of those companies where I would question, why do I want to allocate capital to a stock like this? What do I really want to get out of that stock? What's my long-term objective? I'm going to trade that and it doesn't have enough action for me to trade. Do I want to hold it long term? What is it going to do? Is it going to double, triple in 5 years, which is kind of what I look for a long-term hold that will at least double, triple in 5 years, at least. And this, I don't know without knowing what it does. I don't know. So I would say, I'm going to go back real quick for 5 years. Had a nice rise. So yeah, I mean, whatever they do, it's one of those stocks over 5 years you would have done very nicely with. We'll take a look at it tomorrow. So thanks for that heads up. There's a bunch of stuff that you guys have given me that I'll take a look at overnight, and we'll chat them up tomorrow. Thank you all, and I hope you all have a very good evening. Be safe out there. I'll catch you tomorrow. Cheers.